Breaking news right now, Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow and Innovation and Science and Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne from the federal government are making an announcement regarding cell service on the TTC. It's happening now. Let's listen.
Here in Toronto. But before I get going, let me say a few words to Mayor Chow. Mayor Chow, pleasure to be with you. I think it's our very first press conference that we are having together. And I can say what a start, I must say. We're going to be improving the lives of millions of Torontonians that are experiencing lack of cell phone services in subways. And we're acting together, and we're acting decisively. I also want to recognize Councillor Mayers, which is the chair of the TTC. Councillor, you're just there. I just want to say thank you because your presence speaks volumes about your dedication to improve services for people who are riding on the subway every morning. To my colleagues, and I'll take the time to name all of them because they have made a huge difference in leading the effort. They have really been following this case for years and making sure that at the first opportunity, the federal government would intervene to make sure that we improve the lives of Torontonians. So Julie Derowitz is with me. Ivan Baker is with me. Rob Oliphant just joined us. James Maloney. James is somewhere there. James is the chair of the Ontario Caucus. Hali Elassi is with us. And Salma Zahid. This is the team that has been pushing us and me as minister to make sure that we would improve the safety for riders in the TTC. By providing them cell phone services, I think that you have millions of families that will rejoice today in saying that they have contributed to make Toronto safer. Before I get into my formal remark about the TTC, I think it is a moment we should all take before I begin. Let me just say a few words to commemorate September 11, these September 11 attacks. Most of us remember where we were on that terrible day, already 22 years ago. And today our thoughts are with our American friends and obviously Canadian family who lost loved ones on the tragic day. C'est évidemment un grand plaisir pour moi d'être ici ce matin avec la mairesse Chow, des membres du conseil municipal de Toronto, ainsi que plusieurs de mes collègues députés de la région.
As well as many of my colleagues from Toronto. Thank you for being with us for a historic day in the history of the TTC.
Today is that connectivity is finally coming to all TTC users here in the city of Toronto. This is affecting more than 2 million people on an average workday. 2 million people on an average workday. That's the number of people that will be affected by the announcement today. I think we can all agree as Canadians and the mayor, as Torontonians, that in Canada's largest city, it is simply unacceptable that so many subway riders still do not have access to wireless services. Just think about that. Even airplanes today are offering connectivity. Yet for many TTC users, getting on the subway is like riding in perpetual airplane mode. What I'm here today to tell you that those days are over. Time is up, and that's why we're going to be acting decisively to change that for millions of TTC riders. Comprendrez qu'en tant que ministre de l'Innovation, des Sciences...
As Minister of Innovation, we want to look at the interests of Canadians and improve the quality of life of Canadians every day. Regardless of the provider you choose, when you take the subway here in Toronto, you should be able to access to mobile phone services.
More than a decade. Just think about that. More than a decade since the TTC signed a deal to enable cell service in the subway. And yet, 10 years on, Torontonians who use the subway are left waiting because companies aren't stepping up to the plate to provide the same services available in every other Canadian transit system. So the time has come to take action to address this situation once for all, and that's what I'm doing today with my colleagues and the Mayor of Toronto. Following an expedited public consultation process, I'm announcing today that the licenses to operate of all major carriers will be revised so that to ensure that all TTC riders will now be able to have coverage in the subway system in Toronto. And that is a key point for all the users in the existing system here in Toronto. My friend, this is a question of safety first and foremost for your kids, for your friends and loved ones, but also for our community here in the city. Suite à un processus de consultation publique
Following
accéléré,
a public consultation process, an accelerated one, I am announcing today that the licenses of all internet providers contracts will be reviewed so that all riders have access.
This means that all major carriers will have to offer voice, text, and data services, including, obviously, 911 service, by October 3rd on the current wireless network in the subway system in Toronto. This will be followed by full service in all tunnels and stations across the network as soon as it's possibly feasible. And make no mistake, should mobile carriers fail to meet these conditions, I will not shy away from taking further action as appropriate. And not only I expect them to follow what we're demanding today and requiring, I think it would be in their best interest, as millions of Torontonians are using and want to be using their services and are going to be watching. This could include, if they fail to act, imposing mandatory penalties and even suspending or revoking a carrier spectrum license. This is very serious business. The TTC, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, is the largest transit system in Canada and a huge player in the city's economic well-being. That's why I firmly believe that enabling connectivity on the TTC for all users is not only the necessary thing to do, but the right thing to do. That's what I will keep with my colleagues fighting for TTC users and for all Torontonians. With that, I am pleased to pass the microphone to my friend, the Mayor of Toronto, Mayor Chow. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Today is a happy day. All the transit riders are going to have a sigh of relief and said, finally, finally, it's happening. October 3rd, where moms would be and dads would be able to connect with their children that are on the subway to find out that, we have arrived. Or those that want to do some homework or do some work on the subway, they could do that, they could text. And of course, that if some folks wants to have any kind, or if people that are in trouble, hopefully not, they could feel that they can connect with someone. That sense of security is so important. Mr. Minister, I am amazed how fast and strong and decisive that you've moved, because I've been elected, holding office for about 30 years. And some things takes a long time. Yes, it is been 10 years since the TDC made that agreement. We didn't have much to show for it. And any kind of pleading and begging didn't get us anywhere from the city of Toronto, and lots of people have done that too. Now, you are using your mandate, your power to say to the telecoms to say that it's long overdue. Let's make it happen. And that we need this service as soon as possible. And we hope that the companies will get the message, that they would cooperate and work together so that Torontonians get the service they deserve and they need. But I am so relieved that you're willing to take strong action. Let me tell you, we need to see a lot of that kind of action because it is very precious in this world of ours. So thank you for stepping up. Thank you for answering the calls of the citizens and residents of Torontonians, and thank you for saying to the TTC riders, we hear you, we're here for you, we will make internet services available for every rider, no matter which company that you are using. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. We'll be happy to take questions. I think the mic is there, but however you want to do that, you decide. You all know each other, and it's a sunny day. We have a lot of time.
Thank you for taking my question. It's Alex from the Globe and Mail. I'm just wondering, Rogers has said that the current network as it exists couldn't handle the roaming from all of the TTC riders from all carriers. So do you believe it's technically feasible for this deadline to be met?
Well, definitely. That's why we had public consultation, and what we expect is that all the companies will work together. You know, I was very firm with them when it came in May, and I gave them a deadline to say you need to get together to provide services. We're talking about millions of people who have been waiting, as the mayor said, for almost 10 years to fix that in the largest city of Canada. So by amending the license and requiring, in other words, forcing them to do so, obviously I expect them to follow suit. What may happen, as you suggested with the roaming, is that what we want to ensure is some level of services for all TTC users, even if it could mean in a very short period of time that there would be reduced service for one carrier. But I think in the public interest, for safety, for our communities, for our kids, as the mayor said, and my colleagues, it is in our best interest as a city to make sure that everyone has some services by October 3rd. And like I said, the other news is that we're going to be mandating expansion because, as you know, what we're talking about is in the existing network. But what we are saying also is that we want them to cover 100% of all the station within 6 months. We want them to cover 80% of the tunnels within a year. And we want them to cover 100% of the tunnels in the subway within 3 years. The reason for that is that they can only do work during the night within some hours. And the third condition is that we want to make sure that at every new station and every new line, when the lines become operational, that there will be full voice, data, and text services as soon as the new lines become operational. That is what Canadians expect. That's what TTC users expect. And I think we're in 2023. That's what we all want to see in Toronto.
You previously gave them a deadline to reach a commercial agreement in terms of the rates, and they failed to meet it. And now all the companies are kind of blaming each other, right? With Rogers saying it's Bell and Telus who are dragging their heels, and Bell and Telus saying Rogers just won't give them access to the technical specs and everything that they need. So what do you plan to do if we end up in this situation again where they're just pointing fingers at each other?
They know me by now. I'm not the type of guy you want to mess with. I think they've figured that out. But above that, they don't want to mess with millions of Torontonians who now have a clear timeline as what is being expected. And obviously, it is in their best commercial interest to serve customers here in the TTC subway. But in addition to that, by amending their license, which is something which is unprecedented in Canada's history, that the Minister of Industry, as the mayor said, that's the first time ever we've done that, is to amend the license that allowed them to provide service with conditions to provide services in the subway in Toronto. I think the message could not be stronger, and I expect them fully to comply with that. If they fail to do so, we'll take enforcement action, but I suspect that the voice of Torontonians is much louder than any enforcement action. People want to see action, and now.
Hi, thanks for taking my questions. Mirna Djukic pour Radio-Canada.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Monsieur le ministre, comme vous l'avez dit, ça fait plus que 10 ans
Mr.
que
Minister,
l'entente.
as you said, it's been more than 10 years since the agreement was signed, so why did the federal government intervene now? Why, after a decade? Why did it take so long? Well, first, because it's time to act, and secondly, this is one of the questions you should ask to the CEOs of the various carriers, because, you know, I'm the regulator, but they're the ones who offer the service to Canadians. And if you want a more technical answer from a lawyer, which I am, I can tell you that BAI, the company that operated system in Toronto was not subject to the telecommunications laws. So the federal regulator came when Rogers bought BAI, allowed us to come at the time that when they bought the company to make sure that the service is offered throughout the TTC. So the company was bought in April. I asked in April for the service to be offered to everyone. And then we had public consultations in July, and they ended, and now that's why we're acting now. But we acted as soon as I had jurisdiction, because I had jurisdiction starting in April 2023. And now a follow-up on my colleague's question in French. What message do you want to send to the companies today? And also, what's so important for them? What will happen if the agreement isn't struck before the deadline? Well, the message is simple. The time has come to offer the service in the TTC. You know, Toronto is the biggest Canadian city, and it's the only one where there still is no mobile service in the transportation system. So I think the time has come, largely, for us to make sure that the telecommunication companies work together, which is why today I say I'm going to amend the licenses of these companies to force them to offer this service. I'd say is essential. We want to communicate with our kids, our friends, our close ones in terms of safety. You know, people are asking questions about that. They want access to telephone and text, and obviously to mobile service, and everything that comes with it, with voice and data that could be offered. So I think it was highly time for us to act. And we now will force the telecommunications to serve the people of Toronto.
Minister, with respect, I'd like to talk to one of your Toronto area MPs, Liberal MPs, on the situation when it comes to funding for primarily African refugees in Toronto. To whoever, which one of you wants to actually take this on, the minister just a moment ago said, don't mess with Torontonians, millions of Torontonians, they won't be ignored. Many people feel like the message to each of you on this situation over funding with the city is being ignored. Council people here are naming you directly in the chambers, saying that they will be increasing pressure on you to ensure that the message on funding is heard. I'm just wondering if one of you would care to say, while you're standing next to the mayor, and again, Minister, with respect, if one of your MPs would like to actually address this.
I'll probably ask Rob Oliphant, who is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, if he wants to comment further. But we're always listening. I mean, today you have a great example. From the moment that we had jurisdiction, we acted decisively to improve the lives of millions of Torontonians. And I can assure you, in the history of Canada, you have one of the strongest caucus who speaks on behalf of the issues that matters to Canadians. We spend the summer listening to our folks. We know that affordability is the first thing that people have in mind. The cost of grocery, we're talking about housing. We're talking also about making sure that we have this green industrial transformation. Today is Monday, and we're acting on the TTC. And I think you'll see a lot of action because that's what Canadians expect from us. But with that, I'll turn over to Rob if he wants to add a few words on behalf of my colleagues.
Thank you, Minister, Mayor. I haven't had time to congratulate you in person. Congratulations. The issue of asylum seekers and refugees seeking housing in Toronto is real. Housing affordability, housing attainability is absolutely critical. The federal government has absolutely stepped up to the plate. Have we done enough? I would be very clearly, as one Torontonian, one Toronto MP, saying no. That we will continue to need to discuss with the City of Toronto, with the people of Toronto, how it is we solve the problem. The problem is multifaceted. The problem is not the problem of asylum seekers. It is a housing market crisis in Toronto. It is a shelter space crisis in Toronto. We are wanting to be the best partners. We'll also call upon the province of Ontario to step up and find every level of government, every order of government finding its place to solve the problem. Torontonians have been loud and clear. I have received emails about it. I think all my colleagues have. We've had discussions about it at our 416 caucus. We will continue to work with the city and find a solution.
Could I just actually follow up with you? Because it is really primarily a problem of money at this point and jurisdictional bickering. So what kind of message are you sending to the Prime Minister when you meet with him on behalf of your caucus mates in the city that you know your seats could be at risk here?
It is partly a problem of finances and money, but it is also a problem of building affordable housing and attainable housing continually. This is something that there are no quick solutions to housing. This is a major market problem that we're having not only in Toronto but other cities. We face it in a variety of ways in this city. I face it in my own riding. All my colleagues do. We are speaking about the issue. We'll continue to speak about the issue, but we'll also call upon the Ford government to also step up to the plate, who has responsibility for housing as well. Thank you.
Always a lot of issue.
Minister Champagne, Sean Jeffords, CBC
Sir.
Toronto. A question for you along the lines of my colleague from
Yes.
Global News. Last week, the City of Toronto adopted a long-term financial plan. It calls on the province and the federal government to step up in different ways and negotiate a new fiscal framework for Toronto, but probably more broadly for cities. The response to this point, up to this point, the federal government has given has largely been dip into your savings or go up the road to Queen's Park to sort out your financial problems. Why is the federal government taking that tone, and why is it not in active negotiations on this fiscal framework with the city right now?
Well, I think Rob said it very clearly. First of all, we're listening to people, but it's true that in the federation like Canada, the answer is not always at the federal government. I think that the provincial government has a role to play. You've seen it, for example, when we've attracted record level of investment in the province. We went back to the provincial government in Ontario and say, you have to pay your fair share. That's how it should work in a federation like Canada. You've seen when we did Volkswagen, when we did LG and Stellantis, the federal government is going to be there at 2/3, the provincial government at 1/3. I think that the message overall is that in issues like that of primary jurisdiction of the province, people should turn first to Queen's Park. But in terms of listening, I can tell you, we've been doing that all summers, and you have probably one of the most dedicated team of people who want to deal with the issues that affect Canadians in their daily lives. We are listening, but also we need to be fair in saying there's a door you need to knock first, and I think this first door is in Queen's Park.
Minister, a question for a colleague of mine. It's been over a year since the massive Rogers outage, and the CRTC is still investigating what happened. Critics say the CRTC is moving too slow to force telecoms to be more upfront with customers. What's your response to that?
Well, as you know, the CRTC is independent, so they do their work. Obviously, we follow the work that they're doing. They have to continue this investigation. You know, at the moment when we had the outage, I acted decisively. This was the moment where I called all the CEOs and say, you need to do better on behalf of Canadians. We also signed something. You remember the contract with Canadians that made sure that we would take a number of steps to minimize the impact. First of all, prevent. But should it ever happen again, that we minimize, that the automatic roaming, emergency services, we took a number of action. So I'll let the CRTC do the important work they do. But as you see, whenever we have jurisdiction, I take no time to act on behalf of people. That's what we're doing this morning, which is going to affect the life of millions of people.
Hi, Minister. Tina Yazdani with City News. I'm wondering what the response has been like from other carriers. I know Bell has been very unhappy about this situation, wanting to work collaboratively with Rogers to build this network underground. Were they consulted at all before this announcement was made? What's their response been like?
Well, we, as you know, under the Act, when we amend, this is a very, very big step. In the history of Canada, I'm told it's never been done, where you amend a carrier's license to operate with conditions. So for them to be able to sell cell phone services, they have to comply with what we said today. This is unprecedented, but I think it's needed. The mayor said it loudly. My colleagues said it. We needed to act because millions of Torontonians want services. And I think they're right. You know, we deserve better. We deserve to have cell phone coverage in the subway system in Toronto. In order to do that, I had to go to a public consultation to follow the requirements of the Act. This is what we've done. We listened to everyone. And that's why today we're coming with very clear rules that says, regardless of the carrier you have, by October 3rd, you need to have cell phone coverage in the existing network in the subway. And also we're mandating that you expand the service, like I said, with respect to all the stations within 6 months, 80% of the tunnels in 2 years, 100% of the tunnels in 3 years, and any new station or lines that are going to be open here in Toronto will have to have full network coverage in terms of voice, data, and text as you open. So that is now mandated, and that's what they will have to comply with.
But have they expressed that they're going to be fighting this at all? And also, why now? Why do you feel comfortable making this decision now?
Well, I don't think it's in their best interest to fight Torontonians. Listen, those are their customers. I don't see the logic of them to fight their customer, let alone fight the regulator. But what I would say, why now? As I said, because it's about time, because they have not done it before. And as I said before, when it was under BIA, I had no jurisdiction under the Telecom Act. If you want the very lawyer answer, I had jurisdiction the moment BIA was bought by Rogers, at which point in April, the moment they bought it, we demanded that they offer services. They failed to do so. They failed to come to an agreement. We said we're going to launch public consultation and put that in your license. That's what we're doing today. So as the mayor said, from April to where we are today, I think in Canada's history, it's pretty short in terms of taking action to defend the rights and the expectation of Torontonians.
Morning, Minister. Ian Bickus with the
How you
Canadian
doing?
Press. Good, how are you?
Good to see you.
Good. Just wondering, Rogers launched their service August 23rd while consultations are still underway and kind of preempting some of the processes. Are they facing any penalties or repercussions for that action?
No penalties. They just need to agree now with all the others. You know, I don't look at the issue from the perspective of the carriers. I look at the issue from the perspective of the people. People have kids. The mayor said it, the colleagues, you know, people want to be able to text to their kids, say, hey, by the way, I'm going to be late. They want to be checking on their neighbors if they made it safely to home. They want to be able to tell the employer maybe something happened while they are in the subway. Think about that. This is what, the fifth largest city in North America. And in 2023, we don't have cell phone coverage in the subway system. I think the clear message that Torontonians are sending today, and I'm their voice, I'm expressing their frustration, it's unacceptable. And therefore, it's for the carriers to organize themselves to do that. Today, it's being required under their license, and I expect them to follow suit. And in terms of Rogers, they'll have to work with the others, because the point is that we want to make sure that regardless of the carrier you choose, you have cell phone coverage when you ride in the TTC system.
And just given past deadline fails, October 3rd, if it isn't in place, what kind of penalty would they face penalties immediately, and when do the license renewal, would that actually affect them?
Well, first of all, they'll face Torontonians. And I don't think that's what they want to do. They'll face their customers, because their customers know now that what is expected of them. And if they fail to do so, I'll take enforcement action. But I don't think we'll get there, because this is just common sense. This is something that is needed, something that has been wanted for Torontonians. And I think colleagues would say, and the mayor, people have been patient around here. People have been patient. So the moment we got jurisdiction, we took action to make sure it's going to happen. And if they fail to do so, we'll take enforcement action. And as you know, since I'm the regulator, it goes up to revoking a license to operate. I never think that we're going to go anywhere close to that, because their customers, which are watching TV tonight and listening to radios and read the paper, will demand that by October 3rd, they have the service in the existing system.
I just have one very quick follow-up.
Yes.
On the monetary penalties, can you give us a sense of like what the realm of that would potentially look like?
Well, there's a range of that, but we're talking amongst each other here. This is good commercial practice to serve your customers better. I don't think that I should have ever had to act, or me or the mayor or the colleagues to do that. It's sad that we had to do it, to force them to do so, but I think now they understand that we mean business, that they're going to be required to do so. But I expect them, you know, to do that, to step up to the plate, as they should have done from day one, to fix that, not waiting for government to intervene to protect the interest of citizens.
So you don't want to give a specific ballpark?
Well, there's a range of penalties, but you know what? I don't think we'll ever get there. We've been working with them. They know Torontonians, and they know who I am, and they know the mayor. I think they know enough by now to make sure that they have to do what they have to do.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Minister. Momin Qureshi from City News.
Sure.
Just a question in terms of what is it that you expect by October 3rd versus what will be laid out over the next 3 years?
Okay, so let me take it simply, and I think, Mayor, if you want to comment at the end, I'd be happy to, and any colleagues who want to have, because I'm the voice, but many colleagues have contributed to that. So what we're saying is that there will be equivalent level of services for all TTC users in the existing system by October 3rd. So that's the first thing. So regardless of the carrier you have, you will be able to have basic services in the existing system by October 3rd. The second thing we're mandating the telcos is to say, as we know, this is only covering part of the TTC system. We know that there's many tunnels and stations which don't have services. So we say, you need to expand the services. So all stations within 6 months should have voice, text, and messaging services. And we say within 2 years, you need to cover 80% of the tunnels. And within 3 years, you need to cover 100% of the tunnels. So that in 3 years, you would have full coverage. And the reason why we need to give a timeline is because, as people would understand, you need to install equipment. And that equipment, and you have the chair of the TTC can go on, but you can only do that within so many hours during the night. The third thing we're saying is that for any new station, any new tunnels, any new lines that are going to be open in Toronto, at the time you open the line, you need to make sure that you have full mobile services. So we don't face that ever again. Mayor?
If you want exact date, October 3rd, you heard, and then June of next year. And for the station, we're looking at a year later after that, 2025, 100% station and subways in the tunnel by December of 2026. Okay, so you will get it in the station first, the existing infrastructure first. Then the area that is on the stations, okay, text, etc. And then tunnels, good percentage of it, then 100% of it. Okay, so June, October, June, December. Okay.
So basically, whatever Rogers offers as of October 3rd, the other providers have to offer.
That's right.
Yeah, for every other. So in a sense, they can do that to roaming or other type of equipment. That's for them to figure out. But as we said, October 30th is the date that Torontonians will be walking in the subway. And in the existing places where you have coverage, they will be able to use their cell phones regardless of the carrier they have.
Okay, and this is just a question on behalf of my colleague, Cormac McSweeney in Ottawa. What's your reaction?
How is Cormac doing, by the way?
He's very well. Thank you for asking. I'll let him know.
Okay, following the breaking news this morning, that is Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne alongside Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow announcing that all major carriers' licenses when it comes to cell phone service on the TTC are being expanded to get them on the TTC system. There's kind of a rollout plan of phased in, but effectively on October the 3rd, that'll be voice, text, and data. Let's listen back in again live right now.
Canadians care about, and Canadians care about is affordability, the price of grocery. They care about housing. They care about the green industrial transformation, and they care about what we're doing this morning to improve services for Torontonians. That's what I care about. Honestly, I have no time for these guys. Merci tout le monde. Thank you, everyone.